2003 Volkswagen Jetta coolant housing on the back of cylinder head leaking. I'm Brian Essex from How To Automotive, and I'm going to show you how to replace it. We're going to remove this top engine cover, so you need to pull the dipstick out and then just lift up and then pull towards you. So the coolant housing we're doing is on the back of the cylinder head on the driver's side, and also the coolant temp sensor is mounted into it. So to get started, we're going to need a bucket or something underneath to catch the coolant when we take these apart. And we're going to start by, the easiest thing is to remove the fresh air inlet on the secondary air injection pump here. We're going to remove that by just, all you do is squeeze the tabs here and pull off. So now we can go ahead and remove the upper radiator hose from the housing. So go ahead and remove the squeeze clamp, squeeze them here and pull the hose clamp back. So after getting the upper hose off, now you can go ahead and remove the transmission cooler hose here. So same thing, squeeze clamp. So after getting the transmission cooler hose off, now you can go ahead and remove the heater hose here at the end. Squeeze clamp, remove the hose. So now that we got all the hoses off, we need to remove the coolant temp sensor. I'm gonna replace it with the job I'm doing here, but if you're not gonna replace it, all you need to do is take this little clip here, little C clip, pull it straight out, and then you can wiggle the coolant temp sensor out. But since I'm not replacing it, I'm just gonna go ahead and leave it. I'm replacing the housing and the temp sensor. I'm just gonna go ahead and unplug it. And the way you do it is this little tab at the very end of it. You push the whole connector in towards the sensor, and with your thumbnail you kind of pry the back of the clip backwards, and then it'll come off. You have to be very careful. They do break very easily. Now that I got the sensor off, here's a little closer look at it. So that's the tab at the end I'm talking about. You pry backwards. So now here's the new housing. So you guys, you can see it only has 2 bolts. So you can see this is where the upper hose went. This is where the heater hose and the sensor. So you can see there's one on the left corner and one on the right corner here. So they're gonna be 10 millimeter bolts. You can see my socket set up here. I'm gonna remove the first one, then I'll remove the second one, which is right here. Okay. Also, this pipe here above the thermostat housing, right above the coolant temp sensor, there's a metal pipe on here that goes to the oil cooler. So once you remove the tin here, it's down below. So once you remove that tin there, as you can see, I got it removed. Then there's a 10 millimeter nut that's on the other side. So you remove that 10 millimeter nut, and once you do that, then this pipe will move. It's slotted, and it'll come upwards just towards the top of the towards the hood. And then once you remove it upwards just a little bit, there's just enough room to get the 10 millimeter bolt that holds it on the other side. So I'm going to move the pipe up and down, and you can see it move up. So it'll move up just enough where you can get your 10 millimeter socket on there and remove the bolt. Now that you got the the coolant housing off, you need to clean up the surface with the block that it mounted on. So you can use like razor blades, or you can use a die grinder setup if you can get it in there. So you can use your die grinder setup with your Scotch-Brite pad. So I was able to get my die grinder in there and clean it up pretty good. Now that we got the block all cleaned up, cylinder head in, now what I did was I took a piece of paper and stuck it in my socket and stuck my bolt in there, and then my bolt won't fall out. So now I can with one hand I'll position this housing back in there, make sure that the temp sensor hole is pointing upwards, and then I'm going to start the bottom bolt first. It was the easiest one to get to. So I'll go ahead and start this bolt first, and then I'll just run it in a little bit. Then I'll start the top bolt, and once I got both bolts started, then I'll tighten them down. I'm going to also make sure that the the new O-ring is in your housing. So when I went to tighten it up, I just used a small ratchet and a 1/4-inch ratchet here, and I just did it by feel. And then so you'll tighten both of the top and bottom by feel. And you don't want to over tighten because the housing is made out of plastic, but you do want it pretty pretty snug. If I had to guess, it would be around 10-12 foot-pounds. Now that you got the mounting bolts tight, now you can go ahead and push the metal coolant pipe over the bolt, and go ahead and put the 10mm nut back on and secure the metal coolant pipe to the housing. So now we're ready to put our coolant temp sensor back in. So I just it came with a new O-ring, changed the O-ring out, and then put a little grease on it. And the reason why I change it is it's very common for the sensor to fail. So I'm already in there taking it out, so I might as well go ahead and put a new one in. So I would recommend you do that too. They come in, on Volkswagens, they come in different colors, so just match up the one with the color and the pins that your vehicle has. So, and it also came with a new C-clip. So we're just going to lube up the seal a little bit, and then all you do is push it in until it seats. Then you take the C-clip and you put the clip into the little slot, and you push it in until it locks, and then you just give the temp sensor a little snug and make sure it's good. Then after you got it plugged in, you can go ahead and plug in your electrical connector. Just push it on. Now after that, go ahead and reinstall the heater hose, or go ahead and install all 3 hoses and the clamps. And if the clamps if they don't feel like they're in good shape, like they've lost their squeeze, I recommend replacing it with new clamps. And also check the hoses itself. They rot from the inside out. So if they look like they're in bad shape, now would be the time to change them. So go ahead and mount all your hoses. And now that you got all the hoses remounted and your sensor remounted, you can go ahead and put your fresh air snorkel back on for your secondary air injection. And it just fits over the little slots, and you just push on until the little ears click. So now that your secondary air injection is all secure, we can go ahead and fill the coolant up with a Volkswagen approved coolant. It's like a pinkish colored coolant. And fill that up with the 50-50 mix. And there's a fill line on this bottle here, right here. So you want to fill it up till it's at the fill line, and then run the car until the thermostat opens up, which is here just behind the alternator. So if you put your hand on the hose as it's running, for after about 10 minutes, you'll feel this hose get warm, and once that hose gets warm, the thermostat is opened up, and you may have to adjust your level, but you don't want to overfill it. If you overfill this bottle and put the cap on, this coolant will expand, and it will create a lot of pressure and pop the bottle or the radiator or a hose or something like that. So make sure you fill it to the proper fill mark right here. And then I like to do is test drive it, after the thermostat opens and your cooling fans have come on and run. Then I like to let it cool down for a good 20-30 minutes, and then take the cap back off and recheck the level. It may drop a little bit, and just adjust your level. And that completes the coolant housing on the back of the cylinder head on a 2003 Volkswagen Jetta with the 2-liter, I guess it's called the AVH engine. And also you're going to put the top engine cover back on. So you need to remove the dipstick again. Put the little slot over the rubber grommet on the top of the intake. Push on towards the firewall. And then once you get that done, you line up the hole over the dipstick, and you just kind of push it in. And put your dipstick back in. And that's it. You also definitely want to make sure the dipstick is in. If it's out like that, that's actually a vacuum leak on this engine. So you want to make sure the dipstick is secure. Brian Essex from How To Automotive, and I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and remind you to subscribe for more valuable videos like this. Thank you again.